Good afternoon. Welcome to our fall pinning summary for our spring cohort. So we have 4 teacher residents presenting this afternoon, and then after we present, we will also have their pinning ceremony. First, they'd like to share their data.
Oh, I know she gave me the biggest head. She's like, "Help me!" I'm like, "I have to start be good." Yeah, no. No, wait. It's okay. It's okay. I stepped out. We'll still get my best in. Okay. Hi, I'm Miss Gonzalez. Um, so we did an SPS, and it serves as an action research project, giving you a chance to better understand your student and identify ways to support their academic and personal growth. Right here is my survey results with their average. My pre SPS, we did 4 different ones: student learning, student centered environment, classroom management, classroom community. I wasn't off by much, as you can see. And this is my pre survey results. So my pre survey results provided clear and actionable feedback regarding student perception. 47% of my students felt strong that I understood their needs and that I cared for them about them. 53%, that's combined of sometimes and never, felt that a gap in this perception. This highlights a critical need and an immediate area for improving, which means deepening a connection with my students to ensure they are all feel genuinely seen, understood, and cared for in the classroom. So some of the strategies So some of the strategies I worked on was mainly for the classroom community. I truly wanted my students to feel that like I cared for them and that I supported them in the classroom. So every morning I would greet all my students plus more. We would give high fives or fist pump. Some of them were shocked that I even said good morning to them. And eventually they got used to it and would say good morning by the time excuse me, even before I would say good morning to them, or some of them would already be ready to give me high fives and fist pumps, or even a hug sometimes. My other one was that I'll pay close attention to the signs of students' frustrations, especially in our curriculum. At the district I work at, we started a whole new curriculum. So understanding when they got frustrated that we needed to take a break and just do a brain break, and then come back together. This is my post survey. You can see from the very first one to this one. The post survey results shows a remarkable transformation in students' connection. The target that I was going for, it paid off. Um, 96.64% felt that I cared for them and that I saw who they were and I understood them. But that I can't see. I obviously have no reds, so that's good. Um, so yeah, they all felt that I genuinely saw them, I understood them, and that they knew when I needed to give them a break from what we were doing.
Okay, my name is Miss Quintana. I'm Leslie Quintana. This is the student perceptions assignment. Okay, so the student perception survey assignment serves as an action research project that helps you better understand your students and identify ways to support both their personal and academic needs. So I was originally placed in a third grade math class in start of spring 2025. I then transferred over to a first grade self contained class, meaning that we teach all subjects ELAR, math, social studies, and science. I started that this August 2025, and I'll finish with them here December 2025. Let's see. The student demographics in my first grade classroom, I had 5% of the students were white, 75% of the students were Hispanic, and 20% of the students are African American in my classroom. So my surveys results with the average. So my pre-student assessment for student learning, I got a 1.7 overall. My student-centered environment was a 1.4, classroom management was 1.8, and classroom community was 1.5. So it wasn't really that good, honestly. My post assessment for student learning did come out to 2.3 average. Student center environment was 2.2, classroom management 2.8, and classroom community was 2.4. So my pre-surveys, you can see I did have a lot of red. Um, most of my students selected that I never had classroom management in that classroom. The pre-survey results show that 25% of my students sometimes behave the way the teachers asked them to, and 75% of my students chose never that they never behave the way their teacher asked them to. The strategy I used for classroom management was to or help my management skills, sorry, were to be more vocal and clearer on what I expected students to do and provide positive praises. So with that, I had to do a lot of my expectations. I had to voice them out loud. I went into the classroom thinking that if just told first graders, a bunch of first graders once that they were going to understand. And I learned the hard way that no, you have to tell them consistently until they get in the routine with the procedures of how you want the classroom to be ran. And the positive praises, I struggled with that a little bit. I used to always focus on just the negative. And when I started doing the positive praises, like Ms. Bickerman told me, I saw it change. So positive praises in the classroom does work. The post survey for my classroom management, I had a couple of ones still, which I wasn't too happy about, but I'll take the majority of the grade that I have now. And it shows that 50% of my students always behave the way their teacher wants them to, and 35% of my students sometimes behave the way their teacher asks them to, and 15% of the students never behave the way the teacher asked them to. On the pre-survey for student learning, so this is for the students. My pre-survey results show that 50% of my students sometimes learn a lot almost every day, and 50% of my students never learn almost every day. So as you can see, I have no green at all, and pretty much 50-50 that they never and almost never. I'm sorry, sometimes they never learn almost every day. The strategy I use is that the learning skill that I'm sorry, the strategies I used to help my student learning skills were to be intentional on my small group interventions and having a guided checklist each student to have and exactly what it is that they are needing to do. So during small group last year in third grade, we went in, all four of us, into the semester where it's already review time. We're not going into the semester where we're barely teaching curriculum. So I had a different mindset and it had to shift for third grade. It was just review, review, review every single day. So our small groups looked very similar almost every day, if not every day. But with first grade, I learned that not all students are on the same level. We have students that are still in the kindergarten, and then in my classroom, I have students that are in the kindergarten level, and then I have fourth grade level students in my first grade class. So I knew I had to differentiate for small group. The pre-survey results show that 65% of my students always learn a lot almost every day, and 35% of my students sometimes learn a lot almost every day. So this one, I had no reds, I had more greens this time. And my reflection is that I learned that the student perception is a powerful lens into classroom effectiveness. Students notice both strengths and inconsistencies, and their feedback directly informs growth.
Okay, so I'm Miss Rodriguez, and I did my residency in a fourth grade classroom, which are my students were around 9 to 10 years old, and I had a total of 19 students, about 10 girls and 9 boys, and that's a picture of me with my students. Okay, so my main focus for my survey was to strengthen my student relationships and classroom community. My SPS results, my pre-results showed that about 47% of my students felt that I knew it was important to them, which is not that good, but it was also the beginning of the year I administered this survey. And my teacher knows my life outside of school. This one was 63% of my kids said never. And my teacher cares about me was 40%, that all that said that felt that I cared about them. But this was at the beginning of the year. So my main focus for this part of my survey was my teacher knows my life outside of school. So the intervention I used to try to get my teacher knows my life outside of my school was to greet students at the door by their first name. And this was mainly to build stronger relationships so that they felt more known in my classroom. In addition, I also added asking students about their weekend and what they did. And by asking them about their weekends, I learned that a bunch of them are actually like neighbors because it's like neighborhood school. So they went to the park together. They also went to urban air and they would visit each other's houses, which I found kind of surprising. So my post results showed that my teacher knows what's important to me, kind of stayed the same. It was 46% of my students said always. My teacher knows my life outside of school. 60% of my kids said never, this was the one I was working towards, but I stayed the same. But the one that grew significantly was my teacher cares about me, which went to 80% compared to 40%, which this was surprising because I didn't think this one was gonna grow much. But I guess asking students at the door, greeting them, making them feel known actually makes them feel like the teacher cares about them. So once again, my goal was to improve. My teacher knows my life outside of school, but that score stayed pretty much the same. But once again, however, my teacher cares about me grew significantly. This shows that while I still need to learn about my students' life outside of school, they felt supported and valued by greeting them at the door. So by taking this or administering this survey, I will continue to prioritize relationships, building and maintaining daily routines, and learning more about each student and creating assignments that reflect their voices and interests, which is actually something I did with my students using chat. It's really helpful. And this experience showed me that the value of ongoing reflection of my student feedbacks is important, and it helped me grow as a teacher professionally and helped me grow my students in their academics.
Hello, I'm Miss Rodriguez, and I was in a sixth grade classroom, middle school, and this is my student perception survey. So I had about 41 students, ages 11 through 12. There was 21 girls and 19 boys. My focus goal was a student-centered environment. I wanted to improve how my uh, class was run. I didn't want it centered around me, but around my students and how they felt. So my pre-results showed that about 71% of my class felt that my teacher did not know their life outside of school. And another 31% did not felt as my teacher does not know what's important to me. And I had mainly right around this whole section, and that was my improvement focus. So I chose two interventions. The first intervention I chose was to include my students into word problems so they felt as if they were seen. And I also included, for example, one of my students always wore Nike socks, and we had a word problem about socks. So I included her name into them. They really didn't like this intervention. I will not lie. They were embarrassed to see their names on the board. So I then switched it to an avid chat, which was Clock It, and they loved this one. They would even remind me to use it, and we would use it once. Honestly, for everything, if they were correct, if a student answered correctly, or they went up and attempted a problem, we would use it. And this one really did. I felt it really improved my environment in my classroom. Now, this was my post results, and I didn't have much red compared to the first time. And actually, my never went to 47% on my teacher knows my life outside of school instead of 70%. And my always also improved from 2% to 12%, as well as my teacher knows what's important to me went to 35% on always. And even my never went down to 20%. So I did see improvement overall in my classroom. My reflection. My pre assessment scores show clear evidence of growth in the classroom. However, there is still progress needed in students' feelings that they're evidence of success. However, there is still progress needed in students feeling that their important is known and valued. While I'm thrilled with my results, I feel like they could have improved a lot more. This also showed me that student relationships matter in the classroom and how students grow and their willingness to attempt to grow in the classroom as well.
One more round of applause for our four presenters. So I know they didn't think they had to answer questions, but We have our full year who started in fall with us also. They're sitting on this side of the audience. We're going to give them the opportunity if you have questions, because you will be embarking upon your student perception survey shortly. Do you have any questions for the four people who've just completed? Dr. Beatles and Miss Bridges, your students have it. They'll be fine come spring. Oh, we have a question.
So before you did the pre-survey, was this something that was even on your mind going into a classroom? Was already trying to get to know your kids and trying to really like show that you cared for them, or was it something that just came like after you're like, okay, I have to really think about what's really done, or did you really have to?
So I teach kindergarten. Sorry, I didn't know that. I did mine in kindergarten. So mine comes naturally because in kindergarten they want to be seen and heard. And I have some kids that come from not a very good background. So just knowing their backgrounds, it just comes naturally. At least for me, it comes naturally for me.
For me, not gonna lie, was something I did struggle with just because my students are a lot older, so it's not I don't feel like it's as easy to build those relationships, especially if you don't know what they like. So the survey actually helped me in understanding what they liked, asking them questions, getting to understand them better because it's not as easy as well for me, it wasn't as easy as just like talking to them, getting conversations out of them because some of them are at a point where it's embarrassing to ask questions, it's embarrassing to go to school. So the survey really did help.
Any other questions? Friends and family, fellow teachers, questions for our students? Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the pinning ceremony then. So they embarked on a year-long adventure. I don't think they understood exactly what was involved in that year. They just sort of signed up for it. They're all nodding. Uh-huh. So when I received them in December, they all came in and I went, uh-uh. And I said, do you have any questions? They went, we're good. I said, okay. So this is what they accomplished in a year. It doesn't look like much, but there's a whole lot there. They were the first to pilot our spring start. So what they told you is the truth about getting started mid-year. Everything had been established. They had wonderful MCLs, but their classrooms were already established. And then they had the summer off and they came back to a whole new group of children. So they got to learn how to do classroom management all over again from the beginning. Officially, they did 10 lesson plans. But I thought, honestly, they've done more than 100. I don't think they realize that, but you've done more than 100 in a year. They've also survived 32 weeks of seminar, which means coming to campus on Thursday, staying late when they wanted to be home doing other things. They came to seminar. They learned. We used data. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't so good. And we nagged, I nagged, made sure they got things done. They were required to do professional development, which they can thank us later for. So now they don't have to do it when they get hired by their school districts. And best of all, they got to see the growth in their students, which you got to see in the student perception surveys. So the student perception survey is work, but the benefits are fantastic. So I would like to call Miss Gonzalez first to the stage. She did her year in Iran. She is going to have a job there, and she will be teaching kindergarten. Next is Miss Munoz. She was at Blackshear Elementary, and as she said, she started in 3rd grade, and then she switched to 1st grade, which is kind of whiplash because 1st grade in the fall is more like kindergarten, and 3rd grade, when you have it in spring, is more like 4th grade. So she had quite an adventure. And she will be staying, but doing an entirely different grade level. What a woman. Miss Rodriguez. You may have noticed we have 2 Miss Rodriguezes. So this Miss Rodriguez was at Blackshear Elementary, and she was in a 4th grade and went to a 4th grade. So she stayed at the same grade, but she had to trade teachers. And she will be moving to 6th grade, which is at the middle school. And our other Miss Rodriguez, she was at the middle school, and she did math in middle school, but she also trained in special education, and that's where she'll be staying. And we thank you for joining us today, and in a few moments, we will have cake to celebrate. Thank you.